All right, Shalom. First and foremost, giving all praise, glory, and honor that's due to Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rahahakwadash. Double honor to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and blessings to the 144,000 and the hopeful elect. Shalom Barakathum. I'm going to be exploring Unrighteous Decrees, all right, that was issued, all right, well, ever since the Edomites came into power. I'm going to read this little bit in Revelation, okay, just so you can get the context, all right, and I won't go into the full breakdown. This is a Revelation scripture, so, you know, brothers who have to look up, you know, the breakdown of Revelation, the 20th chapter, okay. So when you go to Revelation 20, all right, verse 1, it says, "And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand." All right, and the bottomless pit is what's known today as Europe, okay, the landmass of Europe. That's basically from the British Isles in the west all the way to the Eurasian steppe, which is going into Russia, okay, and that's north of the Mediterranean Sea, okay. These will include of the Nordic lands like Denmark, Netherlands, all of that, and the Europeans, basically. Just think of Europe on the map, okay. And verse 2, it says, "And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan." So it's not talking about the literal serpent, a literal serpent, all right. It's talking about a people group known as a serpent, as Satan, okay. And there's a counterpart to every thing in the heavens. You have the right hand and you have the left hand, okay. You have the Son of Man, all right, and you have, which is Yahweh Shai, and then you have on the left hand you have Satan, you know, and his minions, okay. And we are born as the counterparts, the earthly counterparts on the right hand side of the Most High, okay. And the Satan has a race of people, all right, that are born on the left hand side, okay. These were known as the lineage of Cain, and before the flood, and Esau later, okay, when you read the account of the Genesis, the 25th chapter, okay. And so that's who Satan is. It's a people group, all right. It says, "And bound him 1,000 years, all right, and cast him into the bottomless pit," okay. So there's a period of time where the Edomites, the race of people, they're in the bottomless pit, but they're bound, okay. And this is what is known as the Dark Ages for Esau, okay. That's what he'll call it, all right. You have a lot of gaps in history. All of a sudden, he don't have images. All of a sudden, he ain't know what was going on. All of a sudden, nobody knew anything. People didn't even know basic hygiene, even though ancient Egyptians knew hygiene, you know. All of a sudden, we just didn't know. We didn't have that. No, what happened is he fell out of rulership, okay. He was bound, and his nature, okay, came back out. You can read Job, the 30th chapter, okay. I went into that yesterday. Job 30, start at verse 1, okay, go down, read a good 10 to 15 verses on that, okay, and you'll see the true nature of Satan, okay. And that was an after image of Cain and his and Cain's likeness, okay, when in Genesis, the 4th chapter, when he gets made into a fugitive for what he did to his brother Abel, okay. So that's who he is, okay. Verse 3 again, it says, and cast him into a bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, okay. And why does it say that? Because he deceived the nations, man, okay. Now I'm going to show you some pretty close parallels to the ancient Roman Empire, because it's the same playbook, okay, all the way to the modern day. And this is going to go into what you got over there with the small hats, okay. Just bear with me, because the ancient Romans, okay, they were known as a colony, okay. Rome is made up of 7 hills, okay. Okay, I just typed in, okay, Rome is famously said to have been built on 7 hills: the Palatine, Aventine, Capitoline, Okay, and this is Capitoline Hill. That's where you get the term Capitol Hill from. Okay, so this is ancient Rome. This is before they took down the Etruscans. They took down the Gauls. They took down the people group called the Latins. They took down a lot of people. Okay, and so all of a sudden you don't see all of these tribes fighting each other. Okay, until Rome, quote unquote, is founded with the story of Romulus and Remus. Okay, I mentioned a few groups. Okay, hold on. Okay. See if it'll. You don't give me too much more on that, but those were the main people groups: the Etruscans, the Latins, the Gauls. Gauls goes up into the north towards like Switzerland. Okay, and that's where Julius Caesar. That was his territory before he became the Caesar of Rome. He ran the Gaul region, which is north in the Alps. You know, okay, modern day Milan, that area. Okay, that was his territory, and he famously crossed the Rubicon, which means he was going south to Rome to basically take Rome. All right. Anyway, this is the context, because you have this group of individuals going by the name, well, they took the name Rome. Okay, and even the language of Latin from the Latin people. All right, and all of a sudden you have a bunch of them fighting. You know, all of a sudden it's just a bunch of tribes fighting each other, even though they lived there peaceably before this group of individuals settled the 7 hills of Rome. Okay, all of a sudden now, you know, it's curious that they're all fighting now. And then these Rome, over a course of a period of time, this is like 750 BC, 700 something BC, over a course of a period of time, they slowly but surely take over the Italian peninsula. Okay, what's known today as the Italian peninsula. Okay, they started at Rome and they branched out. Okay, now this should sound familiar because they settled Jamestown over here in America. Okay, all of a sudden, you know, they're categorizing the people around them as hostile. All right, you heard Matt Walsh calling them primitive savages and natives, and they were warring. No, that they were living at peace. Okay, until your ass showed up. Okay, it's not to say that there were no wars. Okay, but this idea that they were just perpetually at war and drinking blood and blah blah. They were doing some things that were off, that weren't pleasing to the Heavenly Father, but they're not as savage as the people that came here to conquer them. Okay, and we know that they're not, because the Lord said He's going to give. The Lord sent them to be a sword, so they have to be more savage than the people that were there. Okay, and so. And the ancient Romans did this. Okay, they categorized everybody that wasn't under the Roman Empire as barbarians back in the day. That's the term they use, barbarians. Today they use savages. Okay, today it's a T word. Okay, rhymes with error. Okay, those are the modern day ones. Okay, so you gotta draw these parallels together. Now I asked ChatGPT a few things. Okay, to try to draw some parallels here. What did I ask it? The first thing I asked it, I said, what is a papal bull? Okay, because papal bulls are the bullshit that they pass to give themselves the right to do the greatest set of atrocities the world has ever seen. Okay, it's not even close. All right, after they wrote these papal bulls, all hell basically broke loose on Esau, Edom. But before I explain that, let me show you the timeline. Okay, Rome went down. Officially, Rome was sacked about 400 AD. Okay, I believe the year is about 410 when they officially took Rome down. Okay, this is after the Hadrian dynasty. This is after the Pax Romana period, which is where Marcus Aurelius and his son Commodus ruled. That time of the movie The Gladiators. Okay, this is after that. Okay, which it was already going down swiftly after Marcus Aurelius. The Roman Empire was going down off of a cliff, basically, man. They waxed worse and worse. Okay, and this is around 200 and something AD, I believe. Now by 400, they got straight up sacked by the neighboring tribes around them. Okay, that's 400 AD. Now they say that period all the way up to the Renaissance period, which is the 1400s, which is 1,000 years, which is what we just read. Okay, they call that the Dark Ages. Okay, some will call it the Middle Ages. And all of a sudden they got all of these different gaps in history that don't know who was who and what was what. All right, because when they came back in the 1400s, in the Renaissance period, they had a new agenda. Okay, they established the Western Roman Empire. Okay, which fell from the Eastern Roman Empire. Okay, to give you context, the East and the West. The East was known as Orthodox. That was ruled out of Constantinople, out of Greece, and the West was known as the Catholics. They became the Catholics basically, and they were still ruled out of Rome. Okay, they fractured. Okay, you had the Eastern Empire, and the West part fell. Those were primarily Edomites. Okay, the Eastern part pretty much continued their rule, and those were primarily Israelites. Okay, you had a mix of everything everywhere. Okay, but primarily the ruling class, the nobility, the shot callers. Okay, they were run by two different manner of people. Okay, and so in the 1400s, the Western side wakes back up. The Western Roman Empire, where the Roman Catholicism basically reemerged. Okay, and so when I read what a papal bull is, it's after this part. Okay, it's after the 1400s. Okay, when the Western Roman Empire came back. All right, because the Eastern Roman Empire, they basically went down. I believe you had Genghis Khan doing a lot of damage over there in the East around 1100, 1200. You had a lot of different groups. They were, Jake was just going down basically. Okay, but I asked ChatGPT, what is a papal bull? It says a papal bull is an official decree or edict issued by the Pope, often used for significant matters like doctrine, canon law, or administrative decisions. All right, and that proves right there that they don't follow the scriptures, because they have something called canon law. Okay, and the Pope can overwrite it. He can change it. All right, that's why the Pope today can come out and say, yeah, we're gonna worship another God. Yeah, being of the rainbow community is fine. You're still going to heaven, because the Pope really is seen as the second in command of the Yahushua. That's how they see it. He's obviously not. He works for Satan. Okay, he's one of the three unclean spirits. Okay, but this is how they saw things, man. And so you have a papal bull can decide matters like doctrine. So it says significant matters like doctrine, canon law, or administrative decisions. Okay, like the doctrine of discovery. Okay, so this is the history of where this all comes from. And I said, is there an equivalent for Great Britain? Meaning, is there an equivalent of a papal bull for Great Britain? Okay, and it says Great Britain doesn't have a direct equivalent to a papal bull, but the closest comparison would be royal proclamations, letters, patent, and acts of parliament. Okay, so you can make a royal proclamation, and that would be similar to a papal bull. You can write a letter. Like, people think a letter is just a letter, but there's a legal thing behind it in the realm of Esau's kingdom, Great Britain. Something called letters patent. Okay, and it says, well, royal proclamations say, issued by the monarch, these can declare law, policy, or governance decisions. Letters patent, formal legal documents granting rights, offices, or charters. Letters, okay? All right, similar to the Balfour Declaration, okay? So these are edicts and decrees that Esau passed right before he did some wickedness, okay? Let me get some precepts real quick, okay? Job 9:24, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. All right, he covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? Okay, so it says it was given into the hand of the wicked. So when it says he was, in Revelation 20, we read what? Revelation 20 and 3, it says, and cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season. Okay. So when you go back, okay, that means the Most High is controlling ages and timelines and when things happen. Okay. And these things are signs are written in the heavens and things too. A lot of times when you look back, when a lot of these major events that shift things, you have signs in the heavens that denote these things, you know, eclipses and things of that nature. All right. Let me go back to Job 9 and 24. When it says the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. Okay. So the Lord set him up. Okay. That season where he was down for 1,000 years, the Lord set him up to be loosed again for a little season, meaning he's not going to make it another 1,000 years after the 1400. That means we're not going to be here to the year 2400. Okay, like Alazar, you know, the chief freak might suggest. Okay, no way, Jose. Okay, so it says he was given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? All right, and you're supposed to be asking the question of who's who. Okay, this helps us line up prophecy. Okay, so going back, there's a precept that just came to mind, that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season. Okay, it may come back to me. Give me a second. I'm gonna go back. Okay, so back to the chat GPT. You know, when I asked it that, I asked it, what was the Balfour Declaration classified as? It says the Balfour Declaration in 1917 was classified as a letter. Okay, specifically a formal statement of British policy. It was issued as a letter from Arthur Balfour, the UK's Foreign Secretary. Okay, so you got one group over there in Britain making a declaration to another people to take land from a third people. Okay, and this is the UK Foreign Secretary. It says to the Lord Rothschild, okay, a leader of the British Jewish community, the declaration expressed British support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. Okay, it says, while not a law or treaty, the declaration had a significant political weight and influenced later international agreements, including the mandate for Palestine under the League of Nations. Okay, so you can see whenever they get ready to do some wickedness, they write a decree for it. Okay, and everything that they did, they wrote some bullshit to justify it, and it's not based in the scriptures at all. And the whole time they're claiming what? To be Christians, you know, stewards of the Most High, when they're the complete opposite. They're the devil. That's why the Lord calls them Satan. Okay, they're likened into a serpent. Okay, because they say one thing, but their agenda is something else. Okay, what do the scriptures say? That's in Proverbs 26 and 25. When he speaketh fair, believe him not, for there are 7 abominations in his heart. All right, and him trying to call and trying to say, I just want you to be saved. I just don't want you to go to hell. You know, call on Jesus, okay, so you can go to heaven. You know, coming under this guise like he wants peace for the earth, but really, the only thing that's in him is violence, man, of violence. Okay, what do the scriptures say? He wear violence like a garment. Psalm 73 and 6, therefore pride compassed them about as a chain, Violence covereth them as a garment. So you got to be proud as hell to think you're going to take over the whole world with violence, and there ain't going to be no uproar, man. Okay? And that's how they did it, through the sword. Okay? Let me go back. Okay? And I asked her another question that says, what papal bulls did Alexander the Sixth write and the years written? Okay? Alexander the Sixth was also known as Rodrigo Borgia, okay, whose son name was Cesare Borgia, okay? He is the depiction that you see with the blue eyes, stringy hair. It should all be clicking and making sense, okay? Why the images look the way that they do? Why did I read Job 9 and 24? Why did I go into Revelation 20? Because this is all the context of the timeline, okay? And we're at the end of this thing, you know? And Alexander the Sixth wrote a lot of papal bulls. Look, the first one, Inter Cetera, okay? Let me read this real quick. Pope Alexander the Sixth, from 1492 to 1503. 1492 is a key year. I'm willing to bet if I look it up, you had some eclipses that year, because that's the year Columbus came over here. He scouted out the Americas, and he brought back a report, okay, in 1492. And look, in 1493, you have Inter Cetera, a papal bull sign. This granted Spain sovereignty over newly discovered lands west of the meridian, 100 leagues west of the Azores, leading to the Treaty of Tordesillas. And that treaty was basically so the Portuguese and the Spanish would not fight each other over land. That's why you have Brazil today, because the Portuguese, they signed that treaty, okay? And so you got a portion of Brazil that speaks Portuguese, and then the rest of it is basically Spanish, okay? But they declared that land between after everything west of the Cape Verde Islands. So basically, off the coast of West Africa, you had these islands called Cape Verde. They said everything west of that, okay, is 100 leagues west of that. The Spain have territory; they can claim it. You know, knowing that there were people there, okay, and we know that they knew there were people there because Columbus already made a direct report. He came under King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, okay? And it says, the first one, it says, Inter Cetera is signed what? May 3rd and 4th of 1493. That's the year after Columbus got back, okay? And why did Columbus need Hebrew interpreters? You don't think they know who they were? You don't think they knew that the Moors were dominating all of Spain, all of Iberia, all throughout Europe? Okay, we were already in Scotland. You got to think about it. We were in rulership in Spain. They will admit that part. But all of a sudden, somehow we just stopped in Spain. Like, you couldn't just take a boat up to the British Isles and there was no Jakes there. Okay, we were all over. Okay, and the reality is this was Esau taking back the nobility. Esau was in Europe, but he wasn't ruling anything, man. He was off in poor areas, okay, struggling, you know. But going on, another one called Dudum Sequitum expanded Spain's rights to territories even further, okay. So Spain went even further than that, man. These people went all over the world, man, okay. They went over there to the Philippines, okay, which is why you have Issachar over there today. You have Northern Kingdom over there today. All right, you have Exime Devontis confirmed Devotionis. Exime Devotionis confirmed Spanish sovereignty in the New World and granted privileges to the Spanish rulers. All right, Regis et Regni recognized King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella's authority over the newly acquired territories, okay? And so you can see the Spanish came over here, and along with the Portuguese, under the decree of this papal bull, right on cue. So this is about 1,000 years right after the Roman Empire was Rome, the city, was sacked, okay? It says the meridian. I said, what country is the meridian? I basically explained that already. I say, was there a decree for British and French for newly discovered lands? It says there wasn't a single papal decree for Britain and France, like etc. for Spain and Portugal, but there were other agreements and doctrines that influenced their claims to newly discovered lands, okay? And one of them it lists here is called the Doctrine of Discovery. When you read the Doctrine of Discovery, actually I do go into that. I said the author of the Doctrine of Discovery, it said the Doctrine of Discovery was not written by a single author, but developed through a series of papal bulls, okay? So the nigga before Rodrigo Borgia, which Pope Nicholas V, all right, he wrote some, okay? And those were mainly giving Portugal rights, and that's why they had to sign that treaty with Spain, because Rodrigo Borgia came in and gave Spain rights, because that's where he was essentially from, okay? Spain was kind of running shots in the papacy back then, you know? And that's why he was elected Pope, you know? You know, they say he's from Florence, but, you know, you know. Anyway. Let me go back. Precept, Daniel 4:17. Okay, it says, this matter is by the decree of the watchers and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men. All right, it says, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the bases of men. Okay, when you read Job 30, when you read Revelation 20, okay, you read Job 9, even Job 24, I believe, you'll piece these things together if you have ears to hear, okay? And ultimately, man, you got to be into this thing, man. You got to be curious about what happened, what's going on, you know? You got guys like the Saint and the Sinner, you know, talking shit, man, you know? Which you don't deal with podcast niggas, man. The Lord is going to kill every one of them, man, okay? We don't need their battered version of history, their spoon-fed, you know, version of history to be edified. They don't know nothing, man, okay? When it all boils down to it, you know? So the Most High set this guy up, okay? And so this is basically the proof of that. Now, I'm gonna go to Daniel 7 real quick. Go over this a lot. Let me see. Yep, I'm going to start at Daniel 7:19. Then I would throw the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding and dreadful, whose teeth were of iron and his nails of brass. All right, that says, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. Okay, so that's important. I'm going to go get this real quick. All right. So when you go to Revelation 13:3, it says, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. So in Daniel 4, Roman Empire is known as the fourth beast. But in Revelation, the fourth beast is split up between a first and a second beast. Okay? It basically died and then it came back. All right, when you read Revelation 20, it explains that he was loosed after a season of 1,000 years. Okay, he was bound up in the European, you know, not a continent, but, you know, the European area, okay, so-called Europe. He's bound there, the bottomless pit, all right, and then he was loose for a little season. This is saying, Revelation 13:3, and I saw one of the heads as it was wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Okay, going to Revelation 13:12, okay, it says, and he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, okay, which means this is the same beast, And when I say the same beast, it's talking about the fourth beast specifically. Okay, the fourth beast from Daniel, okay, is broken up into a first and second beast in Revelation 13. Okay, if y'all following. All right, and it says, and he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And so this is why the Pope came back. This is why Renaissance art popped up, because this is how you got people into it. The same way they program you on television nowadays, when they want you to know something, or they want you to believe into something or buy into something, they'll make it go viral, or they'll plant something. This is what art was back in the day, man. This is why all of the artists, the top level artists, they were commissioned directly by the Pope, because they were not just something to look at in awe. They were convincing people of something. They were changing the minds of people of something. Okay, and they hid a lot of this because a lot of what people know is that the saints were people, so-called people of color. Okay, they changed the image. Okay, so when it says, and he causeth the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. The first beast, that was the Edomite kingdom. And before the deadly wound was healed, that Edomite kingdom fell to Israelites. Okay? And so he came back and he got you to worship the original Roman Empire. Okay? That's what he came back, to get his glory back. Okay? With a vengeance. Okay? So that's the context when you read about the fourth beast here in Daniel. Okay? Now I'll read verse 19 again, Daniel 7 and 19. Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue of his feet. It says, verse 20, and the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell. So the European Empire, okay, got broken up into basically 10 regions. Okay. You had 10 kings, or 10 rulers, or 10 territories. Okay, really 7 rulers and 10 territories. All right. It says, verse 20 again, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell. Okay. So there's of the 10 horns, 3 of them came somewhere and fell. All right. Even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. So one of the 3 horns, okay, had a little horn in it. Okay. And it says, and even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things. And the eyes really go into, he had the most ambition. Okay, he was the lofty how do you call it, pompous, proud devil that promised very great things, man. That's what America became. Okay, promising of great things. You don't need monarchies. We can be greater and do this and this and that, and everybody flooded over here to America. But let's keep going. Verse 21. It says, and I beheld, and that same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. All right, that should tell you who the saints are. Okay? The saints were the ones that came here, that were in the Americas already. That tells you that the people that lived in North and South America before the Western Roman Empire came here were the saints. Who were the saints? The Israelites. Okay? It says, verse 22, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Okay? And we have not yet hit that time yet, because the Ancient of Days has not came yet. Okay? But it will. We're still in that land, aren't we? America still speaks, or the Western Hemisphere is still boiled down to basically 4 languages, and they're all European. Okay. It says, thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all the kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. What beast has done that today? Who's ruling everything? Okay. And who were the 3 that fell? How do you explain that? It says, verse 24, and the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. That was the French, the Spanish, and the English, okay? The English founded Jamestown. The Spanish founded Santa Fe, which is in modern-day New Mexico, and the French founded Quebec, okay? In Canada, in the Canada region, okay? And they all fought over this land, okay? Esau bought the Louisiana Purchase from the French because the French ruled a lot of this land. There's treaties to take over what the Spanish territories, which is why you got a lot of so-called Hispanics in the area of what? Mexico, California, Arizona, okay? Basically the West. Because the Spanish conquered that land, and the little horn that came out of England, you know, about the Revolutionary War, they rebelled against England, okay? And they took over all of this land, made the United States, okay? It says, verse 25, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High. Slavery, okay? That'll wear your ass out, man. Okay? So when did this happen? Okay? Who are the 10 horns? Is this Rome? When did 10 Roman kings fall? Okay? It says, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. Okay? Going back to these evil, wicked decrees that they made. All right? And that's exactly what they did. As soon as they came back, as soon as they got the spiritual go-ahead, okay, that was a wrap. Okay, and one thing you'll notice too in the 1400s, what happened is the Songhai Empire in West Africa took over the Malian Empire. Okay, so there was an empire of Jake in the West African region that fell, entire empire, to another empire called the Songhai. And you had Jakes in the Songhai Empire, okay, but you also had a lot of Hamites, and they were in league with the Arabs, okay. And this is how the transatlantic slave trade happened. The same time Esau's coming up making these papal bull decrees, you have the Malian Empire going down, and this is how they knew who to grab up and to sell, because y'all were not looked at as their people. Y'all were enemies, okay? That's why they sold you to Esau, okay? And they sold you to the Hamites, to the Arabs, to the Edomites, okay? And they covered all of this up, okay? It says, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time, all right? And that means there's an expiration on your rulership, Esau, okay? There's an expiration. And how do we know what season we're in? The Lord said it, okay? You got to look at the sign, Matthew the 24th chapter, okay? It says, but the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it unto the end, and the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. So the same people that got oppressed, that got wore out, they would be the ones that got the kingdom, okay? The scriptures make perfect sense if you understand the breakdowns, man. That's why I did a lesson called The Water for Sound Doctrine, you know? So I think I've spoken enough on the matter. I can probably go into a part 2 of these papal bulls, you know, because just to recap, you had the ancient Romans did the same thing. They took down the Italian peninsula and colonized that. When they came back and the deadly wound was healed, what did they do? The same thing. They came over to the Americas and did the same thing and colonized that. All right, under the new Roman Empire. All right, and then now you have a third iteration of this, making an attempt today, because who do you have over there colonizing? The so-called Middle East. Okay, people with Eastern European last names are over there colonizing the Middle East. The same way, man. You didn't have all this fighting going on in the Middle East like that until who showed up? Just like you have all this fighting going on in Native America until Esau showed up. Just like you didn't have all that fighting going on the Italian peninsula until the ancient Romans showed up. Okay? Now all of a sudden the Middle East is just nothing but fighting and fighting and fighting. That's because a foreign entity is there. Okay? And there's an immune response when a bunch of nations see a bunch of violent people coming in and taking things, man. You know? But they're doing it the same way. And they have no intention of stopping in that little sliver of land, you know, called Gaza. All right? They have a plan called Greater Israel. Okay? You got to look that up. So they're trying to do it again a third time. Okay? But the third time, the Lord ain't having it. Okay? Because like I said earlier, your time, you have an appointed time for rulership, man. Your rulership has an expiration date, and Lord willing is this year. So with that, Lord willing, this is edifying. On to the next. Shalom.